Okay, so activity 1.2, what I'm going to use this video for is just kind of guide you a little bit on what is expected in each part and do a little bit of starter, but I want you to kind of figure some of this out on your own. So you can read the description of what's going on. It would make smart sense to read it. So we have two species of birds. Basically, these are orange-bellied and the yellow-headed parrots, and these are the functions to talk about the number of years since the current year and the population. And if you look at there's a graph of the two functions, you should notice b of x is linear. So you see the linear graph and the population is going down. H of x is quadratic. So you can see that curved look. So over time, the population is increasing. So your task is to, in this game, is to determine the total number of endangered parrots each year over a 6-year span. You can calculate the total population using the two graph functions. Use the graph of b and x and h of x to determine the function t of x to represent the total population of parrots. So for t of x, write t of x in terms of b of x. You're going to put t of x equals, and then you're going to put the equation for b of x and put it in parentheses, plus the equation for h of x. You don't need to simplify. You're just going to write the two equations in those blanks, and they're given up above, okay? So that's what you're going to do for A. For B, you're now going to predict the shape that that graph will make. So you think about it and see if you can predict the shape and write it here for B. And then it says you can write function t of x in terms of x to calculate the total number of pairs at any time. So now this person went through and actually did the math that I told you to write. You had to write in the previous page. Now the math is being done here. And the final answer is here. So you're going to use Desmos or your graphing calculators and put this equation. So that's what it's telling you to do here. Use Desmos or the graphing calculator to find the graph. Draw the graph on the previous page. So you're going to plot it here. So find some points and plot them and make the shape of whatever a graph is. Is it line? Is it parabola? Is it a cubic? Who knows? You're going to figure that out. And then it says label it. Did it match your prediction from part B? Yes or no? And what function family does it belong? Okay, so that's what you're doing in 2. Number 3, Zoe says that using t of x will not work for any time after 6 years from now because by that point the orange-bellied parrot will be extinct. Is she correct? Why or why not? So go look for any time after 6 years, so 7 plus, and see if she's correct about the orange-bellied parrots. Throughout the game of species, you must always keep track of the difference between the populations of each type of species. If the difference gets to be too great, you lose the game. The graph of b of x and h of x are shown. Use the graph, so again, you're going back to the same graph from the first page. Determine the function d of x to represent the difference between the populations. So d of x in terms of b of x and h of x. So now it says difference. Make sure you use parentheses. And then you're going to put b of x minus h of x. And it says do not simplify. So you're just writing and filling in the blanks. Predict the shape. So again, what shape do you think this is going to form? And then it says write d of x in terms of x to calculate the difference between the populations. Write d of x as a polynomial in general form. So now you are going to simplify at this step. So again, it's d of x equals, and you're going to simplify this expression and put the answer here. And then it says use your graphing calculator to graph that. So you're going to take that equation, put it into your graphing calculator Desmos. Again, go back to the first page and graph that and label it on the same coordinate plane. And then did it match your prediction from B? And what function family does it belong to? Okay. So then when we get to part number 5, the next round of the species game includes a red-winged parrot whose population can be modeled with this function, and the rainbow lorikeet parrot whose population can be modeled with this function. In both cases, x is the number of years since the current year. Write a function s of x in terms of x. That means we want it simplified to calculate the total number. So s of x is the total. So think about what you have to do to figure that out and write it and simplify. Write a function m of x in terms of x to calculate the difference in the number. Again, you're going to write that and simplify it here. Then it says to calculate s at 4 and m at 4. So you're going to have to take your equation, and that's when you see this notation, that means x equals 4. And the same thing here. So you're going to take your equations you got in A and B, and you're going to substitute in x is 4 and find the value and say what that means. Okay, and then it says in 4 years, so we're referring to C. How many red-winged parrots will there be? So think about how you would figure that out, and how many rainbow lorikeet parrots will there be? So use that information to figure out the values for this. So that is the work you're going to be doing. Hopefully that guides you as to what to do with each part. And then there's a worksheet. And on the worksheet, we've got graphs of 3 different functions. F of x, which is the line, g of x, this curve, and h of x, this curve. And it tells you about each function for the given value algebraically. So you can do out the work for h of x at x is 2. So substitute and solve. And then once you do that, you're going to go to the graph and check and mark that point on your graph. So show your algebraic work here. And then once you're done doing the algebraic work, go plot it on your graph and make sure it's correct and mark the point.